Welcome to the Old-Fashioned Three. They've been around basketball from the Big Dipper to the Greek Freak, from Russell Celtics to Curry's Warriors, from Peach Baskets to Paolo Banchero. Here are Whitey Gleason, Phantom, and Jerry Reynolds.
Yes, that was that cat, all right.
Happy Game 7 Sunday,
wow.
huh?
Woo.
How about it?
Sunday morning pod, we do it all the time. Come on, once a year.
I'm not sure I'm ready for Game 7 because I'm still processing Game 6. Mr. Basketball, the great Jerry Reynolds.
Wow.
Whitey Gleason. Because if you'd have told me before Game 6 that, okay, the Kings going to turn the ball over 20 times as a team, Sabonis is going to score 7, he's going to foul out, I'd have said, nice season.
Sporting a big shiner.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, he was going to get a punch in the eye.
I'd have said the Kings have zero chance to win that game. They won by, as you well know, they won by 19. I can't figure it out, Jerry.
Well, I can't either, and I
thought you were going to explain it. That's why I'm looking at you.
No, it's that. Well, I've always said every game has its own entity, and and people that try to say momentum carries over and all, momentum carries about the first shot taken of the next game, and that's about where that ends. Mm-hmm. And the guy that couldn't make a shot one game starts making them and gets on a roll. I mean, that's why it's like, say, okay, you knew that the Warriors would win Game 6, just like, okay, now people, the Kings have got them now, they'll win Game 7. Well, we don't. We don't know.
Yeah.
Mr. Basketball knows.
I know. Well, no, I'm going to start off by mea culpa. I had no idea they were going to win Game 6. I didn't give them any chance at all, except for the fact that I gave them no chance. The only joy I was getting out of Game 6 was that they went back to Game 5 and said Steph Curry double-dribbled at the end of the game, which I knew he did, and I rewound it 3 times to make sure he did, and I finally got vindicated. And I thought, okay, that's my victory. Game 6 is going to go down the tubes. There's no way they can beat him. There's no way they can beat him. And then, all of a sudden, they win. I put out the sign, emergency pod. Everybody's on it. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not Game 7? Why not?
Well, if they play really well, if they play a really buttoned-up style, you make all your free throws, take care of the ball, maybe you got a shot in the fourth quarter.
Maybe.
They turned the ball over like crazy, and the Kings just kicked the air right out of the Warriors, right? The Warriors just whoosh.
Well, it was so remarkable to me that this game, in effect, by Coach Brown doing what he did with Trey Lyles and going small and that extent of it just
small ball.
The three we're talking about, the 3 power guys, Sabonis, Looney, and Draymond Green, were useless. I mean, they really didn't have any kind of a role in this game.
I didn't see that coming.
And I did not see that coming. And so it's going to be interesting to see. What adjustments will be made, can be made, but certainly, Coach Brown is saying, okay, I've got this in my back pocket. We can go to a small lineup, and of course, usually the losing team, okay, now what can we do?
Right. Yeah.
We won't keep Looney out there if they're going to do that or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so instead of the Kings had been adjusting to what they did for several games where Looney just guarded the basket, and he was extremely effective and good player, and
he's still at 13 rebounds. You're right, but yes,
but they can't. He couldn't guard anybody, and he, and that's Anyway, I just think that's going to be remarkable of what happens, and my one other thought is like I still believe that this game will depend on 2 players. Wiggins for the Warriors, Monk for the Kings.
That's scary.
I think Malik Monk is averaging like 19 points a game, and if he's going to need to do that again. And Wiggins was totally ineffective, and he's such a key. Clay and Steph are going to find a way to be valuable. I don't know that you count on Draymond as much as they think they do, but
he'll probably be starting, don't you think?
He thinks they do.
He'll probably be starting again. Poole, by the way, in the series, Poole's numbers, his shooting splits: 34% floor, 24% three-point line, 77% foul line for Jordan Poole. And there was, I don't know if you saw, there was somebody captured and posted it on Twitter. There was a moment, I think in the fourth quarter or so, where he comes off the floor and Draymond's like, hey, everybody, here we go. And he tried to give kind of, some encouragement to Poole, who just kind of brushes past him and goes and sits at the end of the bench. And Curry had to come down and, get in his face like, dude, we don't do that.
So Poole and Green didn't see eye to eye on something?
Well,
Is
supposedly
that
that
what
was
you're trying
all,
to make?
all
that's interesting.
all beyond the fan.
Yes,
but
but I
the
knew
big
it wasn't.
problem for them potentially is if they were flat, the Warriors, if they were flat because they're out of juice, if that turnaround's too quick for them. I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But if that was the case, they're in trouble today.
Yeah, well, I think they have to have a production, certainly from Poole, some level. He just can't be a total negative, which he's been.
Yeah.
A total negative, offense and defense. He's putting it all together.
Bad shots. Well, he's like, I heard somebody on XM Series say his shooting numbers are very much like Dylan Brooks right now. So he's Dylan Brooks without the defense. That's not a player that's going to help you win,
No,
right?
Some attitude, yeah.
And that's what scares you a little because he obviously has had big games. I mean, we've seen him, and where he's tough to guard and all that. But I don't know. I mean, he could make the difference on the positive, and certainly he's very capable of making the difference on the negative as well.
Yeah, something weird's going on there. But that's such a great point you made, and it took me forever to learn this, especially in the playoffs. One game has nothing to do necessarily with the next game, and I've fallen into that trap so many times over the years where I go back to last year when Minnesota played Memphis, and I think, Memphis is a better team, and Minnesota blew that lead. This series is over. Then Minnesota would come back to win. So it's such a great point that one game has sometimes nothing to do with what you're going to see in the next game.
It almost reverses itself so often. I always remember the classic was back in the middle 80s. The Celtics beat the Lakers in Boston the first game like 40 points. And everybody's, well, this is over.
Yeah, the massacre or something.
Yeah, the massacre.
Memorial Day Massacre, 1985.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next game, the Lakers come back and win by 10 or 12.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
like-
There's
it's
a guy
like-
named Jabbar who played very well in that
Yes, he
second
did.
game. I seem to recall.
He
yes.
got his feelings hurt.
He did indeed, and showed you what
and,
to do when you get your feelings
And
hurt.
so there you are. I mean, but and they went on to win the series.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it's. I mean, to me, it's just a case of go. It's Game 7, but it's go play your best game and see where it takes you. And I think the coaches, it'll be such an interesting test that way because there's going to have to be some adjustments during the game. Like we saw with Trey Lyles or Terrence Davis getting time. So Mike Brown did some unusual things that worked out very well. We saw Keegan Murray getting more shots, more involved, those kind of adjustments. Well, the Warriors are in the boat. They're going to have to make some adjustments, and you hope, if you're a Kings fan, you hope they don't or they don't work, like maybe changing the starting lineup, maybe using, Lamb or somebody or whatever his name.
Yeah.
Well, to kind of illustrate how true that is.
What
about
was that
each
again
game.
now? Oh, jeez.
Okay.
He's a bad shooter.
Okay. Well,
Oh, God.
I'm going to let
Actually, he
that
had a pretty
settle
good year.
for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to illustrate the whole game-to-game thing and tell you the things that are important in one game aren't important in the next game. You mentioned it. Sabonis and Fox with 11 turnovers in Game 5. Well, there's no way.
Yeah.
If they do that again, we're done, and they get 10 turnovers combined in Game 6.
I know,
and they
that's
blow them
what I
away.
don't understand.
So you don't know what's going on. And you had on your radio show last week, Mr. Gleason, a thing where you asked people about the least likeliest hero or something like that, and I think that was close.
Yeah.
I had Mike Brown going in, and I think Mike Brown might have become the least likely
The
hero in
likeliest
that case.
unlikely hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
Mike Brown for that because I thought that he was under a little bit of fire for maybe being out-coached, and that's just, I think, the narrative you're going to get when your team's behind. You're going to, well, he's probably being out-coached. And I think, like I said, what he did, the adjustment he made, I think was the critical thing to win Game 6. And so I thought he was probably the hero of the game in his own way, and he had to come out with something different. And now, as you say, the onus shifts over to Steve Kerr, perhaps. He's on the road. Of course, they just were on the road a couple of days ago, but with that quick turnaround time, and maybe that's why he pulled his guys
Yeah,
maybe
I
a
think
little
so.
bit earlier
I
than
think
you
so.
would usually do in
Right.
that situation.
Right.
Maybe a minute or two early, not a lot, but
Because
still.
that's a real thing for them.
Yeah, it
yeah.
is, because it's, 36 hours till the next game, so obviously you favor the Kings in that situation.
I think that's a good point there. I mean, I really do agree with you there. I mean, Mike Brown, to me, that game is more Mike Brown, excellent coaching to get the win. I mean, obviously, you have to have players playing at a high level,
Right.
But he put them in positions to do that. Kind of getting Monk more and more minutes. And
Did you hear the story of why supposedly he decided to do that? Did you read the story that
No,
supposedly his assistants and or analytics guys
Robbie Lemons
said,
Yeah.
we got to get more shooting around Monk and Fox, and that's going to open things up for him. And, you never know how it really happens. But Mike Brown said they were so insistent, I finally said, fine, we'll do it. And
I got exasperated with him, yeah.
So, in a way, getting Sabonis out of there and getting Trey Lyles out on the perimeter opened up some driving lanes for the guards.
Well, I do think, we've talked about this for months, how with Lyles, the thought was that
You've been saying it for a long time.
That he'd be the best backup five because of, he's big enough and he can make shots.
Yeah.
And will rebound just as well as the other guys. And then, of course, we were talking on the way over, and I think if the Kings were lucky enough
really good car show.
if the Kings were fortunate enough to win Game 7 and play the Lakers, that I certainly expect
I wasn't going to bring that one up to the end of the show, Jerry. Yeah.
Alex Lynn to play again. But that's kind of what it's all about, utilizing your personnel. But certainly, I've always thought, honestly, Trey Lyles is a much better situational center.
And you've said that.
Than
we know
Metu.
Yeah.
I don't want to make an accusation or anything, but, watching the Kings sometimes, and I know one game anything can happen, but watching the Kings, it seems like a little bit at the end of games now, there's a little bit of hero ball going on with Fox and Monk, and maybe that's what their game plan is. But it seems like they can get a little bit carried away, especially Monk sometimes, and he just decides. And we've talked about it on a couple of games that they lost. He just goes to he Westbrooks it sometimes. He goes to the basket and tries to force things, and that obviously worked last game. But it's something that concerns me a little bit because they do at the end of the game kind of go just to those two guys and let them kind of create, which is great if they can. But sometimes that gets you into trouble.
Well, I think I've always said often, and this goes for everybody one way or another, your strengths become your weakness at times. What makes Monk special is just his,
he goes for it.
100%. Here I come, deal with me,
right?
Type thing, and I think the same thing applies to Curry, by the way. But any really good player, anything, you got your real strengths. Okay, this is me. By God, deal with me. And sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah,
but you can't be something else.
Yeah, if you're this is something we talked about in the car show.
I don't have my subscription to that yet.
For the Kings to be at their best, they need Monk to do that well. So if he's doing it and it's not working, or if he's not even trying it, it's the same. So he has to play that way.
He has to play that way.
Yeah.
And the other thing that surprised me about that game, Murray had a double-double, 15 points, 12 rebounds. He shot 5 of 17, and 4 of 13 from 3, and wouldn't it be great if...
Plus 19, by the way.
Well, I'm not saying he played badly at all. It's just surprising when you see how much accolades he's getting, and you look at the box score. Oh, but he did miss 9 threes. So it would be great if we can see everybody shoot the ball.
But were there any of those where, looking back, you'd say, he shouldn't have taken that?
Well,
I don't think
because,
so.
the other side of it is Herder. Herder came up with those 2 big threes, and then he was 3 for 8. So at the time he shot the first one, he was 1 for 6. You can't tell him not to shoot because he could do just what he did. Those 2 threes were just, those gave life to the whole country, I think.
Incredible. Again, the thing there, too, is, again, credit to Coach Brown. He stayed with her.
Yeah.
Brought Herder back in, and I had that moment of second-guessing the Coach of the Year. What?
That's okay. That. We won't say anything about it, Jared. Just keep it to yourself.
And
you're allowed.
I was by myself. Nobody, so I was just second guessing.
And nobody knows about it.
Yeah, nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
Until I turned on.
Now, was this when you were on the treadmill, or had you gone to the popcorn?
I got off the treadmill.
Okay,
yeah,
went to the popcorn.
I was well into the popcorn, but it was one of those things that ashamed myself to question the coach, but because he was right, showed confidence in his guys. It's like I didn't have any confidence in his guys at that moment.
Right.
But fortunately, he did.
Mm-hmm. Game 7, Kevin. You think it's a thing today, Phantom?
I think it could be a thing. Kevin. It's like Murray came out in the blowout game.
Well, it can be good or bad,
Yeah. Hopefully, there's only one Kevin.
Well, supposedly,
they have a Kevin too. So let's not get crazy.
Against the Sixers in the playoffs a couple years ago, had a really big game.
27, I think.
He had 27 against them in a closeout game.
Yeah.
So
who has the better Kevin in this game? Maybe that decides it.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, I think maybe it does.
Kevin.
The Kevin factor.
Mooney. Yeah. That's Kevon.
The Kevon.
Kevin. Yeah,
that's Kevon. His name is Kevon.
Yeah. Well, I can't say who has the best Kevon.
Yeah.
Well, Kevon Herder.
Sometimes you don't need to say anything.
Sometimes. Too late for that.
Last night on Inside the NBA, they were talking about the pressure. Who has the most pressure? Well, Shaq says, I think it's the Kings. They got all the pressure. And I was like, really? I mean, the Warriors, the whole thing could come apart.
Yeah.
And then, I guess Charles disagrees, whatever. But as we said on the car show, apologize, but terrific car show today. Pressure, it seems to me, you guys tell me what you think, it varies. It may be one way at the start of the game. By the end of the first quarter, it could completely shift. And then depending on time and score in the fourth quarter, at least one of the teams is going to be feeling immense pressure. Mm-hmm. Maybe both are. To me, to sit here before the game, well, who's under the most pressure, feeling the most pressure? It almost doesn't matter.
Well, no, I don't think it does. I mean, I do think, if you really want to say, okay, now who's under pressure? If the Kings are ahead 8 or 10 points, like we've discussed, with 3 or 4 minutes to go, then I think it's a lot of pressure on them.
Yes.
A lot of pressure on them. And now, if the Warriors were ahead, they wouldn't feel it.
Yeah,
they've been ahead before.
They've closed out so many.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Closing out, as Steve Kerr said that, my buddy Steve, before the last game. He said closing out's hard. I agree with you. Yeah, if it's the Kings are up 8 with 5 minutes to go, they're going to face a challenge, a type of pressure that you could only imagine at this point.
But that
doesn't mean they won't handle it.
What's impressive about Game 6 is the fact that they got ahead early, and it's been a game of back and forth, and they maintained that the whole time, and they got into that situation. I know it was Game 6, but it was an elimination game, and they got into that situation. Curry makes the 3 at the beginning of the fourth quarter, cuts it to 7, and so obviously those are like tipping points, and then your boy Lyles comes back and hits a 3, and they fight back every challenge. So that has to give them a little more confidence in that situation if they find themselves up 8 with 4 minutes to go.
Well, too, I thought it's a pretty important thing that has kind of been overlooked, and I'm probably just searching, but I thought the first 5 minutes of the game, Sabonis was great. Now he had a terrible game.
Yeah. Yes.
But he was great in that first 5 minutes, block shots,
taking jumpers,
set the tone, and the Kings, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I thought that meant a lot in that particular, more than usual, because the Kings were coming in there, everybody questioning.
Backs against the wall,
And
they had to set the tone.
They had to set the tone.
That wasn't a game where you're going to come from 19 down in the fourth quarter.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But it seems like he scored early in at least the last 3 games, at least 1 or 2 hoops. It seems he's got, they're focusing on him, get him the ball in there, get him a good one of those turnaround shots. So he scored early in those games. It just, after that first 5 minutes, it hasn't been there.
Yeah, he just,
maybe the foul trouble,
his turnovers,
yeah.
I don't even have a problem with the lack of assist or the lower assist because, again, that's some shot making.
Right.
But his turnovers, he and Fox, and I think both, or certainly Fox, a little bit excusable, losing the ball off the dribble and things like that with a bad finger. But I think, I think with Domas, he's fumbling passes. Not they ever had Chris Webber hands, but we didn't see that through almost all the year. Maybe occasionally on the injured hand.
Right.
But I just honestly wonder, and they've never addressed it, I just wonder if there's not a little issue with the other hand.
Well,
because he had during one game near the end of the season, he'd had hurt it to some degree, and I wonder
because he does. Sometimes it's like he has boxing gloves on.
Yeah,
which is not a good look. No,
not a good look. Basically little drop off passes, and and even rebounds to a certain degree. Balls that and his rebounding isn't bad, but because he's only 1 off of his.
He's putting
his
double digits.
But
I see this as a potential key today. What do you guys think of this? And not to complain about the officiating, because I think officiating for the most part has been pretty much as expected,
except for Game 6. Was terrible.
Was it?
Yeah, Kings won, but I thought it was terrible.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all right. You're entitled to it.
I am entitled to it.
He's surprised you didn't mention that in the car show. That's why he's surprised.
And I've been very, very supportive of the officiating.
You kind of have.
I have, because I don't.
It's bothered me all day.
Yeah,
all the time.
I know you're a little more homer than I am.
Yes, I am.
And that's okay.
I think it is.
Well, putting that aside, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but just putting that aside for a minute, that's not where I'm going here. But if you look at Sabonis during the regular season, 5.5 free throws per game. Okay, it's 23rd in the league. In 6 games, he's shot 22 free throws. Which is 3 point something.
3 points. Yeah.
In 80, he's shot 83 times in this series, and he's got 22 free throws. Draymond Green has shot 37 times. He's got 20 free throws. So I think if they call some of these fouls that have to be happening, I know Sabonis' usage rate's a little different, but I don't think he's been going to the line. I don't think he's been getting any calls when he goes to the basket. And if he gets just a few more of those, because he's had games where he lives at the foul line, I'm not saying the officials need to go. I'm just saying that's something I'm keeping an eye on today.
I think you should. I mean, I do think that there's allowing some, and it goes both ways, stripping guys.
Yeah.
And they're assuming, and a lot of them aren't clean strips.
Right.
And I think Sabonis maybe is an easier target than most because he has a tendency to put the ball on the floor too much or keep it too low. But still, it's a foul. You can't just go across the guy's arm and knock the ball loose.
Yeah, when he gets the ball 18 feet from the basket and eschews that jumper, then he decides to crab dribble in. Every player in the history of the Warrior franchise collapses on him at some point.
Now,
it's Thomas Sherry with
I
a
saw
glove
Purvis Short was doing that. He doesn't play defense.
Right.
So
right.
what was he doing
now,
in there?
would a shoes the jump, would that be like not taking it?
Yes.
Needs to avoid,
Right,
Yes. So
right.
to that point, but what about the other side? I was watching Game 6 with somebody who doesn't usually watch basketball. They were shocked at what Draymond Green gets away with talking to the officials. And we were thinking about
Who is this person?
my brother-in-law, Daniel.
Oh, okay.
And he was kind of rooting for the Warriors, but he's watching. He goes, "How does that guy get away with that stuff?" And I think that I don't know that they're going to change it for Game 7, but at some point they've got to go because his starting point was where other people, that's as far as they can go.
Yeah.
And he starts at a level higher than that. And so, I mean, if he's allowed to do what he does all the time, I think that's going to have an effect on the game. Because he has been allowed to do that all during this series.
Oh, his whole life, actually.
There you go.
I mean,
there you go.
I mean,
didn't wanna
really,
say it.
I think it's embarrassing to the league, and certainly, it is to the officials for why they tolerate it.
Exactly.
I have no idea. It's like, geez, you call a technical on a guy, rightly so, who's showing you up and blah, 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 like I think Fox did once. Okay, call it. It's fair. They shouldn't be able to do that. On that basis, Draymond wouldn't last a quarter in any game.
Mm-hmm. I'm not disagreeing with that. I do think they gave Fox some leeway in Game 5.
They did,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
give Green
Yeah.
leeway every game, and he stood over a guy
Yes.
and taunted him
yes.
too.
Here's
and
the
that
thing,
was
though.
not
If I'm
called.
watching a game of this magnitude with somebody who doesn't watch basketball and they're asking questions, I say, shh. Watch a game and then, get back to me. Until then, you can watch, but keep your mouth shut.
Which is
'cause
why
I'm watching the game.
Which is why
I don't
he
have time
always
to entertain your
watches
questions
games at
based
home
on
by
total
himself,
ignorance.
because this is the guy whose house I was at.
Yeah.
So you don't tell him to be quiet because he controls the alcohol and the food.
You watch the game at your own house.
Let me ask
no,
you.
you got it. What I'm doing in a communal atmosphere. Come on.
Can you explain this to me? Why any group of people would want to watch a game with him?
Oh, Whitey's coming over. Yeah, I got to get out of here. I'm gonna go down to the bar.
If you know what you're talking about, fine. But hey, I don't watch basketball. How do you get away with that?
think it's
Here's
a
my
pretty-
answer: shut the hell up.
That's why we get new fans all the time to our game.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
our entrenched fans are telling people to shut the hell up when they ask a question. A perfectly valid question
Now,
about
maybe-
a guy who's going to
maybe.
make a huge difference in this game.
Maybe I don't say that if I'm at their house. Maybe.
So
Yeah.
if you were
they're at
at
my house,
if
yeah.
you were at the game, you'd say, "Sit down and let's watch the game."
I want to watch the
It
game.
doesn't
I wanna
work.
watch the game.
I would, but it doesn't work. It does.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no upside.
Well, I
there.
mean, sadly, I'm a little bit like you are. I
Thank you.
prefer watching the game, but I don't get on. I just close my door in the man cave, and
Right.
And occasionally,
Yeah.
Mrs. Reynolds will come in and ask some ridiculous question about what's happening.
If you don't know, sit down.
Yeah.
I don't go that far.
If you want to watch,
Sometimes-
mouth shut, watch, and learn.
I just say,
No, I'm not saying that to Mrs.
I
Reynolds.
think you just said that to
No.
Mrs. Reynolds.
I'm talking about our
And-
situation. I'm sure Mrs. Reynolds knows a lot about basketball.
she knows enough
Yeah.
to be a pain in the ass. That's what she knows.
I just met her a few days ago. And
Oh,
she-
that's nice.
Yes,
I'm sure
yeah.
she'll
She
be on the
was
car
doing her-
show soon.
We had
Yes.
a nice little talk about the bark. And,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
She
the
was
bark,
very
yeah.
gracious.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Does anyone have
Wow.
any idea then what's going to happen? Does anyone feel like they are bold enough to make anything approaching a prediction for this afternoon? I
A
don't.
prediction?
I
no. I have
don't.
no
I have
idea
no
what's
idea.
going. Nobody knows anything. That's where I'm going with
Yeah.
today because everything that has mattered in the previous games doesn't matter from game to game.
I heard that somewhere.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
William Goldman. Yeah, nobody knows anything. And I
Okay.
think that's the way we are today. I'm hoping that the Kings make some more shots. I'm hoping that Sabonis is a little more offensive minded. I can't ask any more from Fox.
No.
And we want good Monk and not bad Monk, obviously. But if Herder and Murray can make their shots, I think the Kings win the game.
Well, you know, like I say, you need a better game out of Sabonis. You need a game out of Harrison Barnes. And then you just hope there's some normalcy with the rest. And the thing that confused me, and you brought it up, you know, I would have said if they can't get a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, they can't win.
No.
And I still think that,
Right.
but they did.
No,
so
by
Gary
19.
Sabonis is probably going to have more turnovers than assists in this series.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what it is right
you
now.
know, and
we're going to a Game 7 with a good chance to advance. And
I mean, that was
didn't see that.
a guy that through the 82 games was about 2.5 to 1.
Yeah, 7.
Now that's a lot of it's a credit. Well, some of it's credit to the Warriors.
Well, he's a good handoff guy,
but it's
too,
also true. It's a discredit to him. He's made some of the bad turnovers on his own without any help
Yes.
from the Warriors.
Oh, there was one. What game was it? Game 4 maybe, where he got the ball and he turned, and the ball just flew right out of his hand.
Yeah.
And he looked
And
like
about-
that's a foul. It's like no,
because he was just so confused
Yeah.
by what had happened. He wasn't
Yeah.
looking for it. He was going, "What happened?"
That's what
Yeah.
LeBron does now, and he'll go like,
Well, that's because LeBron's expecting the call. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah,
but
and
I
he
will
usually
say,
gets it, yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
say that Sabonis does look like he could use a couple of week vacation.
Yeah.
because he's kind of beat up a little bit.
Oh, he is.
And
I
I'm
mean,
worried about how the eye's going to look today because usually those
oh,
things
it's going to
after
look
about-
like
it's
battle scarred and
purple
grizzled.
Yeah, I
he's
saw
gonna
him
be-
in this
he's gonna be
thing on
Willis
this
Reed.
morning.
Yeah.
And it was swollen. I mean, it didn't look like
Cut me, Mick.
Cut me,
Yeah,
Mick.
exactly what he's
with
going to
Rocky,
do.
But
I think it's a Willis Reed kind of story.
Yeah.
If Sabonis comes out with the black eye, it's Shiner, and just
well,
destroys
you know that was
no, come on.
All right, that's
Willis
first
Reed,
round. You're right. That's first
First
round.
round.
That's a first round
Willis
matchup. My
Reed.
bad.
that's a bit
I was
stretch, yeah.
I was trying to get some clicks. I was trying to get clicks. That's all I was doing.
Hey, I love Sabonis. This team would be nowhere without him, but he's no Willis Reed.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
A left-handed
I thought when
center is
Fox
where I
made
was
his
going.
first shot, that was a little bit reminiscent of Willis Reed. A little
No,
bit.
he gets
tiny bit.
So he gets
It was
to go to Willis
left-handed.
Reed.
Well,
yeah.
I
A
do
guard
think,
against.
I do think that blow he took from Looney was terrible. I mean, it's amazing that it's like that would be a flagrant 2 or something. I mean, really, I'm not saying he did it on purpose, but they always say contact above the head. Boy, that was contact above.
I think you can prove that. Yeah, you don't need to go to the camera for that.
Yeah, it's like really on a jump ball you got whamboed like that.
You don't see that all the time, getting hurt like that on a jump ball, and,
No.
and not being.
Well, I think
assessed.
it would have been, but they didn't see it. And then the guy, and
Well,
how this
your
works,
whole
but-
point, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he throws it up. It's like,
Yeah. Well, the
That's
guy.
because that's-
I understand that official.
Yeah.
But I thought there were 2 others.
yeah.
But
Well,
Jared,
that's at least a flagrant one. It just has to
Yeah,
be.
has to be.
Don't
Yeah.
they have a thing for officials on how to throw the ball up for a jump ball? I have never seen
That
one go
is a-
straight up in the air.
That is a
I
hard.
mean, some of them do one-handed.
Yeah.
Some of them like do the two. I like the two-hand myself. Go two-handed. But I mean, when you're watching and all of a sudden it's going off that way.
I don't know if you ever tried it, but I think that's for a smaller guy in amongst
Yeah.
2 taller
Well,
guys.
yeah, that's the truth because they're like they're
That is
looming over you.
That is the most difficult thing, and that's why jump balls. It's like, oh, so and so's got the advantage. There's no advantage.
Plus, they're gonna quick jump 'em anyway.
because the toss isn't going to be straight. I mean,
Would you
just don't know.
rather be the official tossing up a jump ball or the ice hockey official with a face-off dropping the?
I would never want to be ice hockey
No,
official. No.
no.
But Jerry's right. I didn't even realize because he probably the light is all blocked out by the 2 guys waiting for
Yeah,
it,
it's
and they're
just
going to
a-
quick jump anyway. You know that.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to get out of the way. So, but you're right. He's got. They have to have his back. The other 2 have to have his back.
Well, like I say, I mean, like you say, the most common thing is the quick jump.
Yeah.
Well, now if you're the other officials, why wouldn't you be watching that? Which means I can see somebody kabong in your face.
Yes, the old face kabonging, and that was legit. There's a lot of times in playoffs now. There's flopping and this and that. You can't. There's no such thing as a face flop, right?
No, not when you're sporting a big shiner.
Yeah, that's not a
exactly.
thing.
You're not going to get called for flopping.
Here's one guy that worries me today from the Kings' standpoint as an X factor for Golden State. Because he hasn't played very well lately, and he was sick, and Gary Payton II.
Oh, yeah.
I think he only played 11 minutes, and he was, last couple of games, he's come back, hadn't been great. He's not a great player, but he can be really impactful defensively, and then all of a sudden you look up, it's like, this guy's taken 5 shots and made 4 of them. So he's a concern if he's got more energy than he's had.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he can do things, the others can't. I mean, like you say, he's a guy defensively that can, could cause problems for
Disrupt
Monk
ya. Yeah.
or Fox. I mean, he really can do that, and you wouldn't have to give as much double help, much like a Davion is for the the Kings, basically you put him on somebody, he can guard him.
He's on him.
Unless, he gets screened off by a couple of screens. Other than that, I don't care if it's Steph Curry or who. He's staying right there. He's there till the morning comes.
Well, they say, like, role players play better at home, right? That's the common wisdom. So which role player do you see stepping up for the Kings today if they're going to bring it home? Which home role player, maybe it's Davion you just mentioned, which guy do you see stepping up and reinforcing that belief that the role players play better at home?
Well, of course, you can't count Monk as a role player because he's basically a star.
Yeah, we just named him
just
sixth
doesn't
starter.
start.
Yeah.
So, I suppose I'd have to say Trey Lyles.
Me too.
I just
You've been
on
that train for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and he's been a good player all year, and I mean sometimes it's very limited minutes, but overall he's been consistent and certainly can make shots. It's like my Mrs. Reynolds told me, and I get good advice from her sometimes. She said, "Why don't the Kings get more Kentucky players?" And I said, "You might be on to something there.
We have
Maybe
several.
Yeah. And a lot of Kentucky players weren't all that good at Kentucky, like Devin Booker and Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. It's like, Coach Cal, what are you doing down there?
Jerry, they just visited campus, played a couple of games, and left.
Yeah.
They really never knew where the library was or anything.
As great as Steph Curry is, and this may be the dumbest thing I've said in a while, and which is saying something because a few days ago I said I like the 2-minute report. So to say that this is the dumbest thing I've said, we'll see. As great as he is, I think if in the first half it's apparent that Steph Curry is like he's their offense, I think that works in the Kings' favor. And obviously, if he scores 70 and makes every shot, that's not good. But if he's the only one, and if he feels the need, like I have to carry the offense, I think there's a good chance that by the fourth quarter that could work in the Kings' favor. Because as great as he is, if they ain't getting anything from anybody else, in some ways, they're simpler to guard. So I don't know.
Well, I will say this. That's not the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Thank you.
I think that's more an effort the rest of the things that you've said.
No, I'm going to take
that almost makes sense.
Don't, Jerry. You made him feel okay. Don't go overboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes he feels a need to try to do too much, and as great as he is, you can see it, but they're not as good when it's all Steph. He needs, and he's not selfish. It's just like, man, no one's doing anything. I gotta carry us today, and I think they're better and harder to guard when it's strength in numbers.
Do you think they have a better chance to do the thing where you make the guys work hard on defense, and the Kings, and the benefit of that, trying to make the old guys work a little harder, make Steph Curry work harder on defense, as far as that's the way you're tiring them out? Because I think, as we've talked about with the 36 hours between games, that's a real thing.
Well, I do think Coach Brown, again, I mean, his whole philosophy is pace. Yeah. Well, just do what what you're really good at. Basically, you're making them work if they have to run sprint down the floor every time on defense. At some point, that hopefully takes its toll. I mean, I'm probably less enamored by that than the fact that these guys. I think the Warriors, being defending champs, many-time champs, they're going to give their best. They're going to, the Kings will have to play as good or better than they played in the entire series in order to win. I think they will. But that's going to take a more Kings-like game.
You don't think the Warriors are going to give them anything today?
I know they're not.
No.
And I mean, and like I say, if I were, as a Kings fan, the thing would scare me the most is to be up by 8 with about 4.
Quit saying that.
I'd rather be up. I'd rather be ahead, of course.
I don't want to be down by 8 with 4 minutes to go.
No, I don't want to be down by 8.
No.
But I just know that there's no quit in those guys. They proved it.
Time and time again, really.
The evil empire over there, but they're a dynasty for a reason, and so you'll have to make big shots, big plays down the stretch to win in that kind of game, and certainly Kings are capable of that, and certainly Fox and Monk, we've seen it time and again. They're more than capable of that.
Yeah, before the series started, trying to look at all the angles, and I was wondering, okay, who benefits from slowing down the pace? And I was talking to Jer, and I said, do you think the Kings would want to slow down the pace at all? And he goes, I can't imagine why they would. So
Okay, well, I mean, you asked and answered.
But yeah,
That happens,
that's
yeah.
where if it gets to that, and who knows, it may not even come to that. If you're up 8 with 6 minutes to go, it's like, okay, do we try to nurse this, milk it a little bit, or do we play the way we play? Do we have to push tempo? And if you do, you turn the ball over. It's a quandary.
Well, I always say that, and that's the old basketball theory. Use the clock. It's a 24-second clock. You don't use it. Uses you.
There's no more 4 corners.
Yeah, you turn down an open shot
miss 4
with
corners.
8 seconds on the clock or 15 seconds on. You may not get
There's
another
a price to be paid for that.
Right,
And
but there is a connection between how much of a lead you have and how much of the clock. I mean, if you have an 18-point lead with 5 minutes to go, you don't come down and hoist shots up in the first 6 seconds of the shot clock every time, right?
I would say that would be correct.
Yeah. So I mean,
That game's over though for the most part.
Not with the 3-pointer. Not. I don't think so.
But so many games are lost because teams quit playing like they play.
Right. To his point, exactly.
And like you say, you got a 9-point lead with 4 minutes to
Yeah.
go, and you're thinking, "Oh, use the clock." No, and then all of a sudden you're taking bad shots
Yep.
at the end of clocks,
Yep.
run outs, 3-pointers.
And once the game tilts the other way, you ain't.
And
you can't
momentum
all of a
flip
sudden
it
the
back.
basket
Yeah.
is smaller too
Yeah.
when you're trying to come back. Oh, we lost it. Now we're going to get it back.
Well,
no, the basket gets smaller.
yeah,
Like at the carnival.
Well, it's like the old, the old thing about chemistry. You don't know how you get it, don't know how you lose. Same way with momentum.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the NBA. It is a game of runs. It's a game of make or miss, and especially when you miss, it's transition. Transition is easier to score in.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, keep taking the good shots. Whenever they come, if it's a good high percentage shot, you better take it.
Yeah, it gets back to that discussion we had about pressure and momentum, and in the Game 7, it changes almost possession to possession.
Yeah.
The superior of the Van Gundys, Jeff Van Gundy, said in the closing moments of Game 6, he said, "This is probably one of the great victories in the Sacramento Kings franchise history." It's like, you think? Duh. But I think he said top 5. What are some other ones that clearly it was?
Oh, wow.
And clearly a one today might be number 1. But what are some ones? And I think you went to some of them. You covered them.
But about
what
the
are some
one,
of the other ones that come to mind?
About where this one, Game 6, I think if they win Game 7, I think that'll elevate Game 6. Because
Sure.
it's like if they follow up on, if they can, because I think Game 6 is right up there, like number 1. I mean, it's way, way up there because of what they were facing. I like to go back to the early days. That's my contribution. When we beat your buddy. When your buddy came to town, missed a couple of free throws, all of a sudden
Gagged.
no one would have ever said that from the stands, as far as you know, Jerry. It wasn't me. But I mean, that was a kind of a put you on the map kind of game, and then he validated the Kings and said,
Do you
it's
think
like a
he
call.
said those things?
I have no idea.
Because his buddy.
I don't even think he said those things. I think somebody said he said those. No, I think he probably gave a nod to our buddy over here.
Yeah,
yeah,
like
definitely.
best fans in the league, giving Sacramento their flowers because of his relationship with you.
But we earned that. I mean,
Yeah,
that crowd
yeah.
was
Yeah,
amazing.
no, it was
all
a-
10,332 of my friends.
Yeah.
That was an amazing crowd. But that was like that was obviously the first day was amazing, but that was the first game. It's like, wait, we're part of the NBA now, Sacramento. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
really.
it. Larry Bird was here.
Yeah.
We won. Larry Bird lost.
And-
it's all good. We still love.
And
we
he
still love
talked-
our opponents.
Yeah, he talked about I always remember after the game because we went and drank quite a bit of beer and he had to buy, which was a
Nice.
He didn't like doing that, because
No, he didn't.
he got no T-shirt money, so
And
that was
he-
the problem.
And he didn't after that for the rest of my career. He never had to buy as me.
He made you pay for that one game.
Yes, he
didn't
did.
Yes, he did.
Well, I always remember too a couple of things about that because I remember he said, "Well, he said I'll tell you one thing: Portland's going to pay for this one." And
The next night?
47 on. And so
did you say,
but
"See what happens, Larry, when you make your free throws"?
But
Yeah.
the other important thing he did say, besides a great fan, it said it felt like Indiana high school basketball atmosphere where there's just
Nothing wrong with that.
And then we said, "God, you guys got the best popcorn here." I said, "Yes, we do." He's a popcorn.
I did not know that. I
Yeah,
did not know that.
the best.
That's the rest of the story right there.
That is the most important
Yeah.
part.
What do you think of this? Just between us.
Yeah.
So a couple days ago, Sheena were playing this game called Corkle, and Sheena says, "Hey, you want me to make some popcorn?" Yes, that's great. So she makes popcorn, and she brings a bowl out, and then this happens. I'm not being critical of her. And I go to eat the
what?
first piece, and it's like, this is like sweet. She goes, "Oh, I made kettle corn by mistake." All right, so I was like, okay,
By
well,
mistake.
yeah, I thought it was a regular popcorn. It's a kettle corn.
Interesting.
It looks the same. So yesterday, I'm gonna make some popcorn, and we're gonna make the real popcorn.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
yes, she brings it out. I take one bite. I go, this is kettle corn, and she says, no, it's not. I said, try it. And so she goes and checks. She's, doggone it, I did. I made the wrong popcorn again. Back to back, Jared. Wrong kind of popcorn.
Well, this cannot be tolerated. Now, but then again, see,
Fool me once.
I make my own popcorn.
Okay.
I got my own recipe, my own popper.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let Mrs. Reynolds within 10 miles of my popcorn.
I don't know that I could make
Does the bag say popcorn on the outside?
Yeah.
It wouldn't say kettle corn on the
wouldn't.
outside. No. So
Well,
if you had a
I
bag
mean-
that said kettle corn, that was kettle corn.
In
Yeah.
theory, you would.
I would think that's the way that they would label them. Yes.
Yeah, but she was in such denial. I said, "This." She goes, "No, it's not." I said, "Yeah." So anyway, yeah, and she felt badly and everything, which I understand. I just,
But you didn't rub it in, so that was good. You didn't.
I would have
mention
brought it
again.
up. I talked
No,
about popcorn.
Obviously
and-
not. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
It happens. How about as far as the greatest wins in Kings history when they finally won a playoff series? They beat Phoenix in
Yes.
2001.
Yeah.
And then one thing I'll never forget, I've mentioned this to you many times, is Grant says, Jerry, you ever thought that's what happened? And I remember you saying, Grant, I did. I knew it would happen someday. But that was a huge,
Yeah,
it's
well,
kind of
I
forgotten
mean,
now. But
yeah, no, I mean, because I always remember that playoff series with Utah. The Jay Will rookie year 27 and 23 lockout. And basically had a home win against them. So that would be ranked right up there because Utah was one of the elite
yes.
contenders in the world at that time, had been. And then I think the trying to think. Oh, Game 5.
Game 5, yeah.
Game 5
Yeah.
certainly was
Yeah.
I'd put right there, and then Game 6
yeah.
would be the three, I think, home games that. And I agree. There's certain regular season kind of games that at home certainly counts. Of course, I'd also throw in one game which was a meaningless game in some ways, and it was not a home game, but coming from 35 points down in the middle of the third quarter in Chicago
Yeah.
Oh,
to beat a
Tyreek.
playoff
Right.
team.
Tyreek.
And
Yeah.
then Ime Udoka had his greatest game as a NBA player, period.
Uh-huh.
So anyway,
Yeah.
but that's why, there's an example of, boy, you just don't know because you can't know.
I'll say this about the Warriors. Who knows what's going to happen this year? Maybe this is the end. This could be the end of their run today.
Could be.
But I will say, I think of the 4 titles, when we look back as basketball fans on the 4 titles, I think the one last year is really going to stand out. The first one
Yes.
was it came together. They were changing the game. They beat a Cleveland team with great shooting, and they won kind of a different way. Then they got Durant for the next 2, but the one last year, I don't even think they thought they were going to win it. So it's to their credit. Who knows what's going to happen this year? But if this is the end, and even if it's not, I think of their 4 titles, the one last year is the one that people are going to go, my goodness, that was almost miraculous.
Well, it was, and really,
To their credit.
To their credit, it proves that they are a dynasty. The 4 championships, and we don't know what will happen in the future. We hope it ends today, in a sense.
Yes,
but it's
we
been
definitely hope that.
An amazing run, and I'll even throw in the 73-win season. You
Yes.
can't. That's like
I kind of glossed over that.
I
Yeah,
know,
you're right.
well, that's okay.
but it's
You're
right.
It's easy to
you know,
forget.
it's like
yeah.
with all the but it's like the Patriots, all their championships, but they had an unbeaten
Yeah.
regular season.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
came within
didn't
a
follow it. Yeah, didn't.
just came very close. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
just marvelous. And I kind of, in my mind is, I don't think they're a championship contender now, to be honest. Doesn't mean they couldn't win because the league is so
Yeah, it's wide
jumbled
open this
and
year.
wide
yeah.
open.
Whoever wins this series is going to be up against it, at least in the early part of the next round, right?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
series will take a lot out of whoever
Yeah,
wins.
there's just no super team out there, East or West. There's some really good teams, but it's not the scary stuff that you've seen in years past. The some of the
Yeah, there's
truly
no
great.
monster team waiting
Yeah,
for you
or
there.
like even the Warriors with Durant.
Right.
That was the team you weren't going to beat.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
What about Milwaukee?
Well,
I don't think this is their year.
that,
I know you.
well, they're obviously a failure because they didn't win the championship, right? I thought Adetokounmpo handled that so well.
Yeah.
If I were him, I'd have said, Mr. Reporter, did you win a Pulitzer or anything?
I think
this
he
year?
kind of did say something like that.
Like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, then you were a failure this year.
Uh-huh.
Certainly you're disappointed, and they did underachieve in the playoffs. That's all. That's not even discussable. But hey, if you got to win the championship every year to not be a failure, boy, or you translate it to regular life. If
it's a tough word to use.
If every actor, if you didn't win an Oscar, well, you failed.
To me, none of those guys are failures. Nobody, and especially we find out Coach Budenholzer lost his brother. Nobody that had anything to do with it is a failure. But to me, I kind of agree with Shaq. He said, you're trying to win. You didn't win the championship. It's a failed season. It's just semantics, but none of them are failures.
No.
But, yeah.
Well, it's a disappointing season, and they were playing for a championship. I get that. And, of course, Shaq probably forgets some of the years he wasted people's time in Boston and Phoenix and Cleveland.
He had 7 or 8 different locations around the country.
Cleveland, he had a bunch of failures.
He failed a lot
on that basis.
Yes.
Well, maybe even if the Warriors lose today, maybe then people will sit back and review the legacy of Steph Curry, and he won't be underrated like Doris Burke said he would. Maybe they'll finally begin to appreciate what he's meant.
I've never seen a more overrated, underrated player. And
but it is amazing. Even I know I'm not supposed to talk about people who don't watch basketball, but even my
you
wife,
can talk about
even
him,
my
just don't
wife
invite him
watching
here.
this series, she's just amazed by it. How's that guy so effing good?
Yeah,
and it's just,
What's the language?
Well, I tried to tone it down, but she's a foul-mouthed woman.
She's a foul-mouthed
I'm sorry.
woman.
I just got to tell it like it is. She
do.
got very mad at Steph Curry on several different occasions during these games because how can somebody do that?
There's no
incredible.
shot there. He made it.
Yeah.
There is no shot, and he made it.
Yeah. And you want to explain to her how it happened. I have no idea.
No, so let me ask you this. He's obvious. So Doris thinks he's underrated, doesn't get the praise. And then immediately you go from the game to Steph Curry commercial. Go back to the game, another Steph Curry commercial.
That's going to really hurt if they lose.
Is it the one with Sue Bird or the one with Candace Parker?
Yeah,
the Subway one.
I like Subway. I mean, a rental car.
Who does he think he is? Baker Mayfield? Come on.
Yeah.
Get off our TV.
Oh, he's terrific on it. I mean, he's like Shaq or Peyton Manning. I think those three guys are just all of them are great at what they do. But it's like, wait a minute, if in fact he's in every commercial in America,
so maybe he's not underrated.
I think that would be somehow the marketing gurus think that people could recognize the face. You don't have to say this is Steph Curry. Who Steph Curry is.
That would be the best, yeah.
How much fun has this series been for you? Whatever happens, say it's great, a great time for Northern California pro basketball.
It's been just a great year. Really from the first, not the first 3 or 4 games, they didn't
work. They were just getting their feet. Getting their steps in.
But after that, it's just been a blast. Really, I've enjoyed this team as much as any team, or more probably than any team other than, I'd put it equal to the Jay Will team of the late 90s.
You love those guys.
Love those guys and the excitement they brought and the national attention they brought. But this team, the unselfishness, the togetherness, the great coaching, it's just been wonderful. Whatever happens, and be a storybook. It'd just be a storybook finish to go ahead and knock the defending champs out. But they won't be a failure in my eyes regardless, I'll tell you that.
So.
We talked about it before the series. This is who I wanted them to play, and it proved out as far as entertainment. I think if we have a great Game 7, we could have a historically great first-round series. People have enjoyed this. People are watching this series.
Most watched.
You top it off with a great Game 7, I think it's just going to be one of the greatest first-round series in history.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying, who the league would like to win this game today. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
They didn't want them to win Game 6, so there'd be an extra game. Is that why they didn't win?
Has that ever happened before?
Oh, interesting.
Well, certainly the ratings are by far higher with this series than any other series. And, see, of course, my feeling is that some of that might have changed because I think the Sacramento Kings are such a fun team, and they are being talked about, that a Kings-Lakers series would not be the powers that be wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, whichever second-round series, whatever the matchup is, it's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Is Ralph Nader still around in case we need to call him again?
Well, he's on. Yeah,
because we called him
like
20.
The 5th person that's asked me that, and it's like,
we called him 20 years ago or something, and Ralph was nice enough to come on.
No, was he?
That's right.
Yes, we talked to Ralph Nader. That's how much that. that series got much widespread
Well,
attention.
it's still. I
Ralph
mean,
Nader.
People. It's like Michael Wilbon always uses that on his show. Of the total the history of screw jobs.
Yeah.
Game 6.
But even though everybody knows about it, it still got screwed. It didn't change anything.
No.
So even if it happens today and we all know it,
No, because
it's not going to change
we have the 2-minute report.
So
now,
you're saying
which you love, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's why, because these things
Because they went
can't
back
happen.
and said Steph traveled, so that play didn't count.
So that can't
and they-
happen
And they
anymore.
didn't get to 7-point lead. It's
guarantees that we
still
won't
4, and
have
it's our
that
ball. Yeah.
anymore,
That's why they
right?
did that, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Uh,
Keep that for the car show.
All right.
so so the Kings still lost. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I said that. So,
Right.
I mean, if they get screwed again, they're still going to lose. And so it can happen again.
I do hope it doesn't come down to anything like that,
No.
where there's just no
Win it on the floor.
basis for anybody on either side to go, well, clearly blah, 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 because the officials.
But I just don't want them to say, well, the officials are going to let the players decide. Well, if the players decide, it's going to be a bloodbath. You have to. I mean, you
Wouldn't that favor the Kings? A blood, if they let them play?
The more
I
physical.
don't know, because I think
don't
Sabonis
know.
fouls out right away.
Yeah, I mean, I think with they got two kabongers, real Looney and Draymond, who'll.
Yeah.
And Draymond gets that extra comfort zone, so he doesn't get called for those fouls. So he'll still be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean,
We don't know.
We just don't
we have
know.
No idea.
We should probably watch the game, huh? Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be doing.
All right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
By
basically,
yourself? Yeah?
Oh, by myself with
Okay.
all my friends.
And who are you watching today with?
I've got a whole crowd of people.
Oh,
They're just a
no.
bunch of people. Some of them don't even watch basketball. Some of them don't like it. They're getting together for
Separate
the friendship,
room.
for the conviviality.
For those of you who
It's-
don't watch basketball, welcome. That's great. There's a separate room
I
for
can't
you.
do that. It's not my house. But I'm glad you
Stay
feel free-
home.
Go to somebody.
Watch at your own house.
There's the forces beyond my control that means I'm on the move. I just got nothing to say about it.
I just don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'm calling it a flagrant.
Hope you enjoy the game. We'll see you next time on the Old Fashioned 3.
Thank you for joining the Old Fashioned 3 on Stones Radio Networks. To stay updated on the show, like and subscribe on YouTube, and all shows are available for download on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and of course at stonesradionetworks.com. Follow the show and the gents on Twitter at OL, Fashioned, and the number 3, at Phantom Radio 60, and at Whitey Gleason. This has been a production of Stones Radio Networks.